What if Dungeons and Dragons felt less like a dungeon crawl and more like a Studio Ghibli film? Today, I'm sitting down with Justin and Jeremiah of 1985 Games to talk to them about Obojima, the cozy, heartfelt, Ghibli inspired setting that's changing how people think about fantasy world building and Dungeons and Dragons itself. So, if you're excited for this, go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's go inside the world of Obojima. Man, it is so good to have you all on the show. It has been a while since we've been trying to work at this and life and schedules have gotten busy, but
Yep.
how are you all doing today?
Doing pretty good. Doing
Good.
pretty good. Yeah. We are finally through some of the busy season and prep for some projects, and we got to walk to get lunch today, and it was delicious, and
Yeah.
it's been a great day so far.
Yeah. What did you have for lunch? That is actually my personal first question.
Oh, well, good question. So there's a place not too far from us. It's like a 15-20 minute walk called Double Dragon, named after the video game.
Yeah.
And also subsequential movie from the 80s. And it's like an Asian fusion joint that's all mid-century modern, like like record bar style inside. And it's awesome. Such a good vibe, and we've been loving it.
They have really good outdoor seating too. We got to sit outside. It's nice enough today that we just got to enjoy a slight breeze and
Yeah.
I think I should just cancel this right now, book a flight, and we should just all have lunch together because
Yeah.
that just sounds dope. I'm not gonna lie. I love that vibe, and I'm so glad. I feel like nerddom is making a huge, strong comeback in our, and we know this from our community, but like even in like the food industry and the
Yeah.
hospitality industry, and in other parts of the economy at large, we're seeing so much injection of nerddom. So I really love seeing that and
Yeah.
hearing that. That's awesome.
we're
Um,
also in a very nerdy city. So there are
mhm.
like manga cafes, anime cafes, and like game stores that also serve crepes and things like that just springing up all over Portland.
Yeah.
So, and I'm glad you brought that up. So, for the folks out there, as you will hear later today, and really in the next bit, I am kind of gushing over our friends at 1985 Games and the cool stuff that you all do. I've used a lot of your products from the 2D minis and tokens, which for folks who've been kind of following us and just hanging out with us, I have an addiction. I will now finally admit to miniatures and terrain. Um,
Mm.
it is pretty bad because it's a pile of shame. However, I add to my pile of shame, and the 2D minis that I've been rocking are fantastic because, quite honestly, especially like I have them at work when I run lunch hour games, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in IT. So it's not hard to find someone who's not willing to play. It's more of like who's actually available. But
Yeah.
you know, having that at the workplace where I can just set up a map, have my minis there, and which I'm not gonna lie, I do use the kind of like Ziploc bag and tackle box strategy
Yep.
to
Yep.
store my
Yep.
minis in terrain, and it works, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that I can put that in a cubicle and then take it out whenever I want, and I don't need to roll it with a GM screen because I like to torture my players with rolling my dice, right? Um, so it's really nice to have that. And again,
Yeah.
I'm so happy because I've been using y'all's products and now to like tap into the minds of those people that,
Yeah.
I see behind social media is awesome. So my first question to both of y'all is what what was the first instance of you that you remember getting into this hobby and then wanting to make the decision to I want to work in this industry?
Oh,
Oh my
interesting.
God. Okay.
Um, so my, my story isn't maybe as passionate and whimsical as other people's, but it's you know, I was working at Dark Horse Comics in 2019, doing just, like, no, when I say Dark Horse Comics, nothing fun. The answer was
Oh,
not cool stuff in any way.
dang.
And I remember my core D&D group, one of the people who was a part of it was just coming off of his own business venture. Like, he was running that business, like coming that business to a close, and he was like, I want to do something else. And he had just gotten into D&D, and we were talking about it, and we had this idea for Dungeon Craft, our first product. And we are like, is this a thing? And I was like, honestly, I don't know. I was young. I was like, didn't really know what I was going to do, which kind of meant that, like, I was also failing engineering school at the time. So that wasn't going as planned. So it kind of was one of those things where I was like, well, I really love this thing, and I enjoy being creative. I've been running that D&D campaign for 5 years at that point. And I was like, let's just see if this is a thing. So we got some friends together, some talented artists, and we kind of we threw care to the wind, was like, let's just see if this works. And it really did, really fast. And all of a sudden it went from being like, oh, maybe I could do this. This could be a cool way to make some extra cash, like, to like, holy crap, like, this could be my job. And then it went from like a oh, I wonder if I could do this, or this would be cool, to like me putting everything I possibly could into making this a reality for myself. Uh, and that also meant some unhealthy work life balance issues, especially early on. But yeah, like, it kind of was like, yeah, I'll try it out. And then the moment I was like, oh my goodness, I could make money and do this, I went, it's all I thought about all the time. I was D&D was my personal life. It was my job. It was every ounce of my being went into that. And so that happened in 2018. And then I was able to fully switch full time into late 2019 after our Kickstarter ran.
Wow.
And yeah, it wasn't like I always dreamed to do it. It was like, oh, this is cool. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, this is picking up speed. Screw Dark Horse, in the most polite way.
Yeah, for sure.
um,
It almost seems like you went from hobby to hobby business to then now I'm running a business in this awesome hobby, which is three different stages if you think about it. Like,
yeah,
it's that bridge. The hobby business part is when you really have to take a step back and say, okay, is this a hobby that I just want to have fun in, or can I actually support myself financially but be happy at doing it?
yeah, yeah. It's a it's a hard place to be in. The hobby business side of things is really difficult, because you can get in a situation where you kind of like work at it for years and years and years, hoping that eventually it clicks, and then something else, like the next big portion comes. And for some people, that just it's not, you can't get there. And to sustain yourself in our industry in general is just super difficult.
Mhm.
So I attribute a lot of where I am today to just luck, like being in the right place at the right time, and then with the willingness to, put in the effort when the time was there. But yeah, it was a lot of luck early on, that's for sure.
I
You
think
have a whole different story.
Oh yeah, I'm totally
I was
uh
gonna say I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
yeah.
And
So I've been playing D&D and DMing since I was 10. So I've been at it for about 30 years now. And during that time, I did a lot of, Joe jobs and things like that, nothing really game industry related. I worked at a place called Guardian Games,
okay.
which is like, at the time it might still be, I'm not sure, but it's like the largest game store on the West Coast.
Oh
When I
wow.
moved out to Portland, I was their resident role-playing game expert for many, many years. And then I started doing professional DMing on the side. And I was literally like the Portland door-to-door DM. Literally, people could just hire me out, and I would show up at your house, a complete stranger, with a bag full of like dice and books and be like, "You guys ready to roll?" And so I did that for a little bit, and then spent some time working at a tech website, doing videos and stuff. And then once COVID hit, I switched to full-time professional DMing online and was running like 8 to 10 games a week and just doing everything over Roll20 and stuff and just running games nonstop. Some of them were modules, some of them were stuff I made up on my own, like my own custom worlds and things like that. And I actually did when I was doing door-to-door stuff, I did use Dungeon Craft well before I really like knew that 1985 games was like right here. And then I got brought onto the team after Lenny, the other owner of 1985 games, put an email out to a former manager of mine at Guardian saying that they needed someone who knew a lot about D&D and was also comfortable being a massive ham on camera. And the manager of the place was like, "Oh, you should meet Justin." Like instantly was just like, "Oh, you want someone that can just be that level of nerdy? This is your guy." So that kind of happened, and I chatted with Lenny for like 20 minutes over the phone, and he was just like, "Cool, come in, have a job." And since then, I've just gotten more and more involved on Obojima and have done tons and tons of different stuff related to Obojima. But yeah, I've been a professional nerd for a long time, and I might be the nerdiest person in the office.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's probably nerdier than me.
In the office full of nerds, I might be the nerdiest guy.
That's a title that you should actually place on your desk. I'm just saying, to be the nerdiest one in a company that is specific to tabletop RPGs, you should 100% own that and put it in your end of year review every year.
Yeah,
Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But you mentioned, and I'd love to talk to you about this a little bit, Justin, where you mentioned you were a professional GM and how you were working on Obojima, which we will definitely be talking about.
Sure.
What influenced you though, from like the homebrew world perspective, the game design? Like, what was the influence to kind of take that step into more of a professional game design aspect that when you're a professional GM, obviously you have to cater to the client, customer, player, where you may design things differently, right? You may homebrew things differently. But then now working for 1985 games, your mechanics, although you are going to do things in a fun way, you also have to kind of be a little bit more balanced. So, what is that line that you toe, and what kind of like helps you toe that line?
I mean, I've always been a really big fan of the rule of cool.
Yeah.
That was always like my governing thing, even if I knew it was like for personal games that I was running and stuff, even if I knew it would kind of make a player OP or make a, item that I made for somebody OP or something like that. As long as it was awesome and everyone at the table was like, "Oh my God, this is so much fun." That's all I really cared about. So, I could always like fix up a monster or something on the back end to like make it still a challenging encounter, even if I'm like overpowering my guys ahead of time. But the difference working with Obojima is it's not just me being like, "This is the idea I want to go with, and I'm just going to roll with it because I have no one to stop me, and I'm God of this universe." Here, there's writers, there's other editors, there's Jeremiah, there's like all these other people that like can be like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, reel it in there, Haas, a little bit."
Yeah.
So, and that's the big difference is having a team of other people to bounce ideas off of instead of just being your own generation and implementation machine at the same time.
So that co-collaboration is really what allowed you to kind of like take the best of Rule of Cool, but then also apply it mechanically.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that.
There's definitely been stuff where I've been like, "Wouldn't this be super cool?" And it's been like, "Yeah, that would be really cool, but we're not going to do that." Like
Obojima it can be a difficult world to develop for, because it's a space where we are pushing players to really interact with the world in a role play oriented manner, right? Like we're asking people to slow down, The term that we've coined is the leisure fantasy style of
Yes.
play that Obojima is.
Mhm.
And to do that, we have this weird space where um, there is a little bit of push and pull for D&D and this style of play where it's not that D&D can't facilitate this like leisure fantasy, but like D&D begs for mechanics. And so
Yes.
there's a balance that we have to do where it's like when choosing when to give a mechanic and choosing when to give direction to be mechanicless, I think is a big thing that Obojima has to do constantly. Because in a standard book, you know, you want to help someone with downtime and you want to make downtime interesting, you
Yeah.
would put a bunch of mechanics in there to make
Yep.
downtime feel unique. And then in
You would roll a
Obojima,
table. You would have a
exactly.
roll table, and what I love about it, and I'm so sorry to cut you off on this, but
No, no, you're fine.
I'm so excited because this is role play, not role play, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
role play as in ROLE, not
Yeah,
ROLL.
yeah,
That you get to actually sit down and have that cup of tea with
yeah,
your friends,
yeah,
right? In this world. And our life right now as modern humans is so fast paced that this
yep,
game reminds me to take a step back and be with my friends, right? It's
Mhm.
it is the fantasy realm of like, let me deliberately be gentle.
yeah,
Let me allow myself to be whimsical, right? Again, like very Studio Ghibli, but then also like encouraging that slow paced play. Like I
yeah,
really love that where, yeah, you do have to incorporate mechanics, right?
yep,
That is 5e.
yep,
Mhm.
And D&D, as you know, as both of you know, it was a resource management slash, dungeon diving game where
yep,
you slayed monsters, collected loot, and kept going.
yeah,
And now this iteration of D&D, specifically 5e, and whether you use 2014 or 2024 rules, that's
yeah,
different. This is the type of world though where you can kind of take a step back, relax, and
yep,
almost like this is, instead of being overstimulated by the world, this game is one of those, let me take a refreshing hike, so to speak, and kind of get
yeah,
Yeah.
out of the current modern day. And I love it.
yeah. It's it's an interesting space to play in, which I agree with you. I think is really refreshing, but it also can take some getting used
Yeah.
to try to,
Yeah.
scale back your adventures, to not focus on combat interaction as the main goal or the main I guess pinnacle interaction in your storyline. That's stuff that we are trained to do as DMs. Like, oh,
Hmm.
the story goes
Get
like
them to the
this,
next
and then you get
combat.
him to the
Yeah.
next combat, and that sparks a catalyst for a next conversation, which turns into a combat, which does the
Yep.
thing.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely something. Um, it's something that takes getting used to play as. It also takes a lot of getting used to write.
Yeah.
Both of our core lead writers, Adam and Ari, both came from the Wizards of the Coast team. They were,
Cool.
they were on the writing team for Curse of Strahd and the Player's Handbook and Wild Beyond the Witchlight
Wow.
and Descent into Avernus. So they're very well adapt into writing gritty core D&D
Yeah,
mechanics.
for
And
sure.
so it's taken, it takes a while and early on it took a lot of like maybe circular writing in the sense to where like we would write something and then we'd always have to kind of trickle back afterwards to come back and say, does this, as the world developed, is this really cohesive with what we
Hmm.
wanted? And that took a while to get to. But it's so rewarding. It's
Yeah.
so rewarding and it is a refreshing palate cleanser when it comes to D&D, in my opinion.
I've had people in the community and stuff. I'm the community manager on top of many other hats, but I have people reporting to me like, we're getting into combat once every 3 sessions of Obojima,
Yeah.
which is like crazy to hear in a D&D game that you're only getting into combat once every 3 sessions or so.
Yeah.
And then they're saying, and my party is enjoying it every step of the way and they're not missing combat.
Yeah.
Like, they have, people tell me that they've had people that have been playing for years and years and years that are like the chronic, just like, I'm really not paying attention until combat starts kind of players and stuff. And they're now being like, well, what kind of tea do they have here? Like they're once they like embrace the whimsy of it, they're into it, which is really cool to hear.
And that's honestly, what I love about this book. And for the folks out there who may or may not know, because I do want to take into consideration folks who may not know Studio Ghibli and just the realm, especially with this book of Obojima. In my opinion, I would classify this as a kind of cozy slice of life adventure
Yeah.
that focuses in the best way possible Japanese folklore, where you're taking the wonder, you're taking the storytelling and the connection. And yes, you can have that combat. But what I noticed is that the combat, it's not pure evil. You're not fighting evil.
Yeah.
You're kind of almost redefining what evil is,
Yeah.
where there are creatures rather that are acting from fear, ignorance, guidance or misguidance or some sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
There are more sympathetic notions to it, a la Studio Ghibli.
Yeah.
So there's more of a moral nuance, right? Instead of slaying the, big bad evil person, maybe your players have compassion for them.
Yeah.
And maybe you purify or cleanse the big bad evil because maybe, I don't know, something in there, they're triggered in a trauma in a past, and you can really mix that there, and it's refreshing, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I love. And I wanted to state that just because this isn't just your other typical or your prototypical, I'm gonna slay enemies and I'm gonna traverse the wild, yonder. This
Yeah.
is really a new take on fantasy games, specifically fantasy TTRPGs, and from a settings perspective.
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
for
go
it. No,
ahead. Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. Go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, it's, to kind of speak on to some of the things, the topics you were talking, it's when building out creatures, when building out monsters, when building out in the world of Obojima, we've kind of stamped Obojima in a specific time frame, by saying it is 3 months post a catastrophic natural disaster where a
Okay.
tsunami hits the side of the ocean.
Mhm.
And from that there's this like sickness that's encroaching on the land called the corruption. And
Capital C corruption.
capital C corruption. Yeah.
Good to know.
We one of the things we mentioned, and I'm kind of doing a little bit of a spoiler here, I guess, for those, so apology. One of the things we mention in our mystery section, where we essentially, the writers are talking directly to the DM, saying like, here are mysteries that we presented in the world, and in certain cases we give the answer to those mysteries, and in other cases we lead on to some options, but we don't necessarily give the correct answer. But one thing we certainly do say is that the corruption, no matter what direction you take in your story, to keep in line with the core of what we want Obojima to be, the corruption cannot be brought on by someone. This is not a big, bad, evil person who has brought on the corruption to attack the land. Because what we overarching the story that we wanted to say is this is this is how Obojima, and this kind of idyllic people might be handling a a natural disaster in some way. And so we don't want the big bad evil. To just kind of bring on to
Yeah.
your point, we are trying to strip that away. We even have a section in the book that claims evil doesn't exist in the way that
Yeah.
it does in standard D&D. The closest being to that is are demons. Demons exist in the world, but
Yeah.
even demons, there's a cap to them. They
Mm,
can only do so much, and almost always demons are led to through tragic story or some sort of curse in themselves. The demons don't form naturally; they're spirits or other beings that have been turned into demons, like you said, via some sort of tragedy or perhaps a sickness or a desire that they go untouched and it turns into something more corrupt or cruel in certain cases. But yeah, it's an interesting space, and that often leads for a question to be asked when you're fighting in combat, which
for sure.
is killing this creature the right choice?
Mhm.
True.
And in the world, we say the culture of Obojima claims that it's not the right choice.
Mm,
Like the average person, I think a good example of this, early on when we were writing, we have a podcast where we kind of talk about it, and we discussed the idea of what happens when a group of bandits would attack like a group of adventurers, and it led to blows, and the bandits died. Like, what would happen? And we talked about the culture of Obojima and what we thought a group of people would do. And we came to the conclusion that we believe the adventurers would bring the bandits back to like a local town and bury them. Like
yeah.
it's not like there's an the way they view the world. Like it would be sad. They'd be
Yeah.
upset that that's what had to happen. Like obviously the bandits weren't doing the right thing, but I don't think anyone wishes to kill another person on the
Mm,
island.
Mhm.
Um,
yeah.
and that says, and when it comes to writers, we can only write so much. We can say that that's how the culture is. It then is handed over to the DM and the players to try to tell that type of story. And there can definitely be some push against that because people aren't used to it.
Yeah.
Um,
It's one of the ways that, conflict in this world differs completely from what I'm understanding than conflict in other
yeah,
games, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
And
I
it's
actually, oh, go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna say, and actually my question for Justin was actually from a combat perspective,
Mhm.
what would you say to the notion of is combat the answer always? Or in this world, like how would you recommend a GM view combat?
So when I run Obojima games or when I help people answer their questions about it, one of my number one rules is the reversed damage rule of D&D. So normally in
Okay.
D&D, it's assumed that when you swing a sword at something, you are doing lethal damage to it. And unless your character specifically says, "I'm going to non-lethally attack this being,"
mm,
uh, it's assumed that you're shooting to kill with every single move that you make.
For sure.
With Obojima, I actually recommend the rule is you are doing non-lethal damage unless your character specifically says, "I am trying to kill this thing." So even if you are a fighter, even if you are, busting out a sword and things like that, and you're attacking these bandits and stuff, you might be like, giving them the butt end of the sword or something, or hitting them with the flat of your blade, because they're still just people. And if they're bandits, maybe they're down on their luck and they're just trying to survive. Like
Yeah.
they might not necessarily be like evil bandit people. They
Yeah.
might just be like starving dudes.
Yeah.
So like I make a rule for Obojima that you need to tell me when you're actually trying to kill something. And like combat should always be not necessarily a last resort, but it should be a second resort at least. The idea that D&D has instilled in a lot of players over the years, because it's the most popular system and everything, is if it moves, draw a weapon and kill it.
Yeah.
And Obojima does not want you to do that. So even if you have like a howler, which are like the hyena folk that are kind of gnoll-esque
Hmm.
creatures in this world and everything like that, like yes, they might be ne'er-do-wells, not necessarily bad dudes, but
Sure.
they have like ill intentions and stuff like that. You shouldn't turn around and be like, all right, let's plunk 2 arrows into their skull and drop it at 60 feet.
Yeah.
It should still be like, hey man, back off, let's work this out and things like that. And you really giving into those verbal skill checks that oftentimes fall to the wayside a lot of times in a lot of D&D things. Um, like all your charisma based skills sometimes don't get as much play as a lot of other skills in that on your skill chart there. Um,
Unless
Yeah.
it's for
yeah,
nefarious reasons, like flirting
yeah,
with the tavern,
yeah,
with
exactly.
the bartender.
You should try to persuade something to like leave you alone,
Yeah.
or like, hey man, we're about to sit down to a meal. How about you have a meal with us instead, and we'll talk about what's going on here.
Mm.
And that sort of uh the like non-violent response, we I from what people have been telling me, is that when they have new players sitting down to Obojima, it's very easy for them just to be like, great. So I ask him what's going on. I ask him what's wrong and stuff like that. They've been saying the people that really have the challenge with it are the seasoned D&D players that have been playing this game for years and years and years, and have spent years, building the perfect rogue that all they do is sneak attack everything like that, and can, drop an orc in one hit and stuff like that. Those are the people that are like, well, why am I not attacking this guy? Why am I not just casting fireball in this room and stuff like that? Like, that's, getting them trained to be like, okay, well, I ask him what's wrong,
Yeah.
is like the challenge for experienced players and stuff like that.
There's another, one of the things we do as the writers when encouraging players to in combat is to consider a few things as a DM and as a player, which is, if you are a player in combat, to consider the reason the combat has started.
Mm-hmm.
So like, what is the driving factor of the creature or the bandits that are attacking you? Like, is there a giant golem made out of rubble that's like striking at you, and it's like it came out of the woods and you're not sure why, and now you're kind of thrust into combat where combat couldn't be avoided. You couldn't talk your way out of it.
Yeah.
What we encourage players to do is one, decide if you want to kill this creature and why you would want to do that. Two, maybe there's something you can do within combat to stop the creature from moving forward. Three, potentially figure out if there's a solution, like a thing that's, what's the problem? Oh, why is the bear attacking us? Well, its cubs are nearby and we're scaring it or something like that. Like to think through, and we encourage to solve the combat rather than killing it. And then as a DM, we encourage for you to think of your creatures as intelligent beings that would make choices to keep their survival. So if a bear has 100 hit points and someone shoots an arrow that does 25 points of damage, the bear might run away.
Yeah,
for sure.
Because if you've ever been punched to 75% of your life, you'd probably be terrified.
I should rethink my choices here.
And we do that. We encourage that with some mechanics too. We have a mechanic system called dispositions, which essentially gives these reactionary options that creatures can have based off of how they're feeling, if they're angry, if they're sleepy, if they're skittish, if they're whatever. And then we have more intelligent based ones if they're vengeful or filled with hate or whatever the options are. So we encourage the DM to kind of think of the nuances of combat. Why are the things attacking you? I think in standard D&D, you kind of throw a creature to attack the party because the creature's in the party's way, I guess, is like the thing that tends to happen.
If there's a Grick in the room and it turns and hisses at you, you guys better fight it.
Exactly.
Like, what's it doing there? No one cares. It's XP.
Yeah. And it's easier to do that. It's easier to come up with some conclusions as to why the creature might attack. It's easy for the party to think of a solution for the conflict when it happens less, because then you're not trying to do 4 combats in a session and you're just like throwing these out. You can plan out, you can put some thought between these things. And so that's one of the ways I would look at combat differently, how I would prep combat differently as a DM, and as a player, how I might look at it differently.
It almost seems like when you all wrote this and play tested and everything, kind of the end-to-end process, you almost passively and maybe actively taught us GMs how to slow down and savor the moment versus utilizing this kind of like, atypical D&D culture where, like you said, Justin, there's a creature, it's going down, done.
Yep.
XP, woohoo, right?
Yeah.
And I really love that. Now, you talked about some mechanics, Jeremiah, where I wanted to ask you though, a specific mechanic and the hero's journey, that boon system,
Yeah.
right? Could you talk about it, explain what it is, but then also talk about how it evolved and like what you really hope people playing in this world, what you hope players gain from it?
I love the boon systems.
Yeah.
So good.
So the hero's journey boon system is a really interesting system that I really wanted to integrate early on. And we actually
Okay.
didn't work super heavily on it until the book was already coming to a wrap. But the idea behind it is to express mechanically, right? This is that conversation of when to give mechanics and when not. Express mechanically uh, a role playing decision that the player has made that has brought change in their character. One thing I always struggled with, prior to launching the Obojima campaign, I was running a session that had lasted for 7 years. It was another
Wow.
session that it was actually that session that I'd started before the D&D campaign that we took a hiatus for a couple of years because COVID, and
Yeah.
then we came back, and so it was the running climax of that campaign, and I had noticed that the characters essentially were the same, and that's really difficult as a DM who's put all of this energy into building a long drawn out story, because the hero's journey aspect of a story that makes it so compelling is kind of placed on the characters. And so what the system is meant to do is encourage players to invoke change. Um, so a great example of this is, that we would give was like the vengeful paladin who's after his sister's killer, and you finally catch the killer, and the character leading up to that point, their story, their driving force is vengeance. But through the adventure that takes place, they become more compassionate. And when they finally catch the killer, rather than slaying them, they make the choice to bring them to the justice system. And
Mm.
so in that moment, the DM might say, you get a boon. You get the I'm trying to remember the boon name now, but you would get like um forgiveness, the boon of forgiveness, or the boon of oh, Justin's pulling them up right now. Of
Mercy.
mercy,
There
that's
you
the
go.
one I was trying to come up with, right? Like you've taken that time, and what that is there to encourage is say like, hey, uh your character has changed. You
Yeah.
have changed. The way you've chosen to role play is different because of the decisions that the game has made you choose, brought you to. I think that's really interesting. But it also what it does, and I think this is kind of how you can use mechanical reinforcement when it comes to role playing, is removing that boon if the character doesn't actually change. Like in the moment, you give the boon of mercy, and then later down the line, the character goes and kills the person anyway, or isn't changed. That mercy was just a fleeting moment for the DM to go, your boon is gone. Like I've pulled your boon from you. It feels impactful. It's like, oh
Yeah.
man. I think that's such a fun thing. When it comes down to it, we'll see how that system really plays out as it kind of blooms in people's campaigns. Um, but I really love that. That's really what we wanted to encourage, and that boon system isn't necessarily all good. There are other boons that are negative. Now, technically, the mechanic system is always positive, but it kind of feels gross to use it in those negative circumstances. Um,
Like, yeah, like I'm giving you the selfishness one
yeah, I'm giving you the
because you
selfishness
decided to
boon.
hoard this treasure when you found it in the room.
Exactly. And it might give you some hit points or something like that, but at the cost of your allies around you, like
Oh,
that kind of
wow.
stuff. I love playing with a mechanical representation of how a character's feeling and the changes that the character's made. That's been a lot of fun. That was a really fun system to build out. And I hope people like it. I guess we'll find out.
I think it makes you more attached to your character too when
Yeah.
you're like pointing out that like you are evolving as a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think it helps promote that role playing aspect of it more too,
Agreed.
which is really nice.
Well, this I would say almost affects character growth differently because in traditional, leveling systems, you don't have this almost moral compass. Because I
Mhm.
feel like this boon system is the moral compass, right? You
Yeah.
do something not for the sake of the reward, but you do it for the sake of goodness itself, for the good thing that it is.
Yeah.
And you so happen to get rewarded for it versus, oh, I'm gonna, kind of meta this particular aspect, slay these creatures and do this thing, and I'll get XYZ. Or I love paladins, right? And I'm going to stick to my oath because I know that if I do, I am not going to become an oath breaker
Yeah.
and then have that negative connotation.
Yeah.
This is more of like, oh, the thing that you did, like let's say burying those bandits, you
Yeah.
are mourning their loss
Yeah.
because you didn't want that to happen, but you bury them. So it's almost like you chose charity and kindness
Yeah.
even though this deed was done. So I really love that aspect of it. But a question that I have is when you were creating, these mechanics, this system,
Mm.
what were some of the challenges that you all faced when developing these mechanics in light of traditional 5e and other RPG mechanics, right? Like trying to suit this more narrative, it really emotionally mature and grounded experience.
Yeah. It the biggest thing um was discerning what should be how deep these mechanics should go. Like
Yeah.
when like there's a big question really early on that we just couldn't figure out, which is like D&D when giving a boon often or any system, an ability, a feature, or whatever, there's a catalyst that occurs. There's like an really easy to determine catalyst that's like you leveled up, or you traded this thing, or you bought this item. I spent this thing. I did this, whatever. Um, I get to make this choice now to get this feature or ability, and it was difficult to figure out when a DM should give that to try to give advice as to what felt meaningful, right? Because it was kind of like this nebulous thing where we're like, to do this it needs to feel the story, the beat, it
Yeah,
needs to
for
feel
sure.
earned in that moment. But then how do you tell someone it feels earned, right? Like, so
Oh,
there's
yeah, true.
one of the strange elements of it was trying to kind of like write out a description on like when DMs should use this thing. And also to when to be sparing with it. That was another difficult thing. Is like, this is not something you should be throwing out all the time. It should feel meaningful.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a difficult aspect of it all. And that, I still think the boon system, if I'm being totally honest, I still think the boon system is a system that new DMs probably should avoid at first, because
Oh,
it can
wow.
get confusing, and we often get a lot of questions about Obojima in general, that you might as an experienced DM go like, oh, it's the obvious answer is this. But because there's so many people that are jumping into D&D for the first time because of Obojima, it definitely, I think, is one of the more difficult systems to integrate into a game if you're brand new.
Oh,
And that was a
absolutely. I
challenge.
can.
That was a big challenge for us. Is just figuring out how to get people to comprehend when to be handing out these actions, these boons.
And what I would say too is that the level of compassion that you all have in design is not only admirable but appreciated because like I feel like you could take a lot from this. And actually one of the questions I have, um Justin, what do you, in your experience, what do you think are some of the lessons that GMs can take from Obujima to make their campaigns more emotionally resonant and more emotionally connected?
um, I think what I really like about Obojima, and this isn't just from like a because they pay me perspective, this is a DM who's played a lot of systems over the years and things
For
like that,
sure.
is I really like the focus on getting to love the world around you.
Mm.
Yeah.
In the sense of like you should, like having a home village and stuff that your characters return to multiple times, or like really focusing on the NPCs and stuff of the world, because a lot of the times, and people have this like video game logic of like, all right, I just got to get through this town to get like stop here, get the shop, give me new items, okay, move on. But like actually taking time to like sit at a festival and have meaningful events happen in the town that
Yeah.
aren't necessarily like combat events, but like what, playing out scenes of like, watching, a shopkeeper propose to their longtime like shopmate that they've been secretly in love with or something like that, or just having like little humanizing meaningful moments for the NPCs that are often just like these nebulous like,
Yeah.
like hit A multiple times and they say the same thing repeating over and over again kind of
Yeah.
feel. Like giving them that personality and being like, these are real people that are doing things despite you guys being here, like really helps in terms of like getting people to like really enjoy the world around them and form genuinely meaningful attachments to fictional characters.
Mm.
Like you want to feel bad if an NPC spirit that's been following your party around like cries because something happened or something attacks them, or like they, like you feel them turning into a demon or something, and your party is doing everything they can to like prevent that from happening to them. You want them to form that attachment, even though it's literally just your DM sitting at a table doing maybe a silly voice about it and stuff. But you want to like put those heartfelt moments in.
Yeah.
And as DMs, not be afraid to be emotionally vulnerable with the people at your table.
Mm.
Like some and that's of course like the level, like how comfortable
For
a DM
sure.
feels and DM styles and things like that. But like being willing to have those like uh the emotions that you see in movies and stuff like that mixed into your game like helps.
Yeah.
And I also think it's really important to have, especially for Obojima, because yes, it is in a system that is very combat heavy and stuff like that normally with the D&D system. Having a session 0 where you lay everything out with your characters ahead of time and be like, guys, this is a slow burn game. Do not expect to level up every other session. Like this is a lo-fi slow burn. Be ready for that, and like getting everyone established for what to expect ahead of time really helps set the tone as well.
Yeah.
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 So
One of the things we do, and this is like just a mini note, but one of the things we do to kind of help that, and I think as a DM, if you're building a homebrew, you could do the same, although it takes a lot of work, is before you come up with a character in Obojima, we encourage you to read through the portions of the book for players. So
yeah.
learn about the whole world,
Yep.
the 30 different locations that we detail, the culture, how society functions, the island itself, the dangers, the threats. Learn all about it, then think of a character rather than coming to a campaign with a pre-made character. I think that's more difficult if you're coming up with the homebrew world, but I still think encouraging them to go through and learn about the world, talking about it for a session, and then have them think of a character is certainly makes it more compelling and integrates the players more in your world.
The nice part about Obojima too is it's small. It's a small biome. It's a single island with 7 different regions and stuff in it, and it's not like Faerun or Tamriel or something like that, where there's like multiple continents and planes of existence and like, all these other things like this. It's just this consolidated. So you have like, what village is your character from? Like what place that's either written out already that you have like all these NPCs and stuff attached to it and everything. Like that really helps solidify with Obojima like meaningful connections to other characters and stuff too. Because it's such a micro universe compared to million billion other things that have thousands of lands.
Well, and that's what I really loved, the fact that it was very kind of like limited to 2 planes, right?
Yeah.
And like the design that you did with that, what I think was fantastic. And something that you mentioned though, kind of taking the player's perspective, right? As a GM, and to really slow down. I have a question for the folks in the audience who are more, they identify more as players. What do you hope players will feel when they finish an Obojima story?
Mm.
Mm.
So I think on the writer's perspective, what I hope players are gleaning and experiencing from Obojima is, it is a space where no matter the danger that you're put in, the kind of overall optimism of the world is encouraging and feels right.
Yeah.
Like I think Obojima idyllic, and at the end of it all, I would love for a player to feel like like brought up and inspired by the world and inspired by the way things are handled, um, and and excited to experience stories in that space again. Oftentimes, DMs have long, sprawling campaigns, and we, in Obojima, we encourage these smaller vignettes. And so when a player finishes that, I hope that they as the one of the writers and the creator, I really hope that they go, oh man, I wish I lived in Obojima. Like that's what I
Mhm.
want. That's the world that I'm trying to develop. Like a thing that uh as we kind of mentioned, D&D is as escapism. I hope that when they escape to the world of Obojima, it brings them joy. Like they feel happy.
Mhm.
Even in the spaces that are maybe spookier and scarier in Obojima, because there are those are stories to be told. I hope that at the end it's this uplifting journey that they went on, and they feel better afterwards. That's what I want. That's the stories that I want to be told, in the space, and that's what I hope people are doing.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Uh, I want them to have fun more than anything. I want them to uh for any game, but especially for Obojima, I always love the hearing from players like, I can't wait to know what happens the next session. That sort of anticipation and stuff is always a really great feeling. But what I'd hope someone got out of Obojima, aside from having fun, is maybe taking the tools that they learned from playing Obojima and applying them to subsequent role-playing games.
Mm,
The like, maybe I don't always need to fight this thing right away. And using that kind of thoughtfulness that Obojima helps promote
mm,
Yeah.
in both in and out of maybe their role-playing world.
yeah,
Like there are lessons you can take from Obojima that you can apply to the real world. But and I would want there to be a lot of those moments that like you as a player talk about with the other people that you played with years down the road and are like, remember that one time, like
Yeah.
remember that game we played 6 years ago and this happened. Like I'm sure you have those moments that you talk about with your parties and
Absolutely.
stuff. Like yeah. So I want those to be fun, not necessarily combat moments that happened in Obojima where everyone was like, remember that game of Blotcher that was just absolutely insane and we were making up the rules on the fly and stuff like that, and it was
Yeah.
just ridiculous at the table and everything. Like that was so much fun.
yeah,
And I want people to have those moments that they can look back on and feel good.
yeah,
Yeah.
Uh,
And I love hearing that because, like I said, I'm so excited for this book and I'm so excited. It's actually gotten me to really want to run a campaign. I'm more of a role play heavy individual
mhm.
mm,
just because I have a background in skirmish games. Like I've played a lot of skirmish games. I still play
yeah,
some when I have the time. I love Star Wars Legion. It's a great system.
yep,
Middle Earth
Yeah.
Battle Companies, all of them are great.
yeah,
Warhammer's too expensive. And honestly, just, you know, there's other great skirmish games, but I
yeah,
really love, and I guess maybe this is more reflective of my life, where I need to remind myself, especially with, a family, and
Yeah.
whether you have a family, whether you have a chosen family, whatever it may be, right? Like, slow down, take it
yeah,
easy. And I
yeah,
can't wait to run this campaign. I really can't. So, um, For the folks interested though in supporting this,
Hmm.
where can they support? What should they expect? And honestly, you know, what will that look like for them?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to support us, right now the big thing that we're pushing for is we have a Kickstarter that's live now.
Awesome.
Probably the tail end of it as people are viewing this, which is for the next book in the series as well as a board game. And this book specifically uh, explores Yadaman, which is Obojima's largest city, and kind of has this like fun kind of Kiki's delivery service feeling that you get
Oh,
while exploring the city, and
you
all of the
sold me
whimsical
right there.
interactions.
You sold me right there.
um,
That's awesome.
it is the epitome of what Obojima is, which is kind of like that mix of like 80s tech and
Yeah.
fantasy and
Mhm.
spirits that all kind of wrap up in this interesting package. And so that's live. So if you want to support us in a physical way, like in a way that supports the company, that's an awesome place to do it and to get some cool stuff. Alternatively, we encourage you to come check out our YouTube channel where we do a
Mhm.
podcast. And that's the Writers of Obojima, where we sit down for our weekly writers meeting. And this is just us creating the world. You get to watch and develop
Oh,
the world.
wow.
And sometimes it's great food for thought if you're just trying to get some ideas for your own D&D session. It's also a way to kind of learn about what's coming in the future as we develop the world. The stuff that's in the meeting often makes it into the books. Um, and so those are the two ways that you could really jump in and support us. Or if you're interested and just want to learn more, those are the places we'd recommend to go check out. Other places like social media, like Instagram and TikTok, and get little
Yeah.
reels and things like that, like getting
Snippets.
little snippets of stuff. But the big places to interact with us would be with YouTube, or we have a very active Discord too, where
Yeah.
people come and share homebrew and talk about the space and just
Our Discord community is wonderful.
super awesome Discord
That's
community.
awesome.
I describe them as suspiciously nice. uh because they're always just really good natured, but there's like sections for where DMs can ask other DMs for advice on things, or like, hey, I'm trying this out, what do you guys think I could do to like tweak this a little bit. There's like tons of homebrew stuff that everybody has put in and everything, including like maps and the fleshed out characters,
Yeah.
Custom subclasses that these guys have made and everything. But there's always someone on there like, doing a live stream of them drawing stuff, or
That's cool.
just like kind of just general chatting about things and people like showing off their character art and stuff. So it's a really like welcoming community that just wants to help everyone feel the Obojima vibe really well.
Yeah.
I really like those guys. They're a great community.
Well, what I will be doing for the folks listening or watching on YouTube and on other streaming services, what I'm going to be doing is that I will be putting all the links in the show notes for the podcast and audio listeners, and I'll be putting all these links in the description field so that you can follow these wonderful people. It's really important, y'all, to really support good creators out there. And, we are a collaborative storytelling hobby, so to speak, and we are all part of a party of some sort. So just like our adventuring party where we would support each other, go ahead and support these wonderful folks and pick it up, do whatever you can, but get involved. And especially in Discord, it's such an
Yeah.
easy way to get involved. And even if you're a bit shy to kind of put your toe in the water, so to speak, I know people who are part of my Discord that are part of y'all's, so they can confirm that they've had a good time, that they've had, and it's really important, right? Because especially nowadays, you either have trolls or you have like lurkers, and the nice people kind of get trapped in that middle ground, and they don't have
Yeah.
a place to be accepted because
Yeah.
they're gonna get kind of they're gonna get shooed, let's just say,
Yeah.
on both ends of that
Yep.
spectrum. So to
Yeah.
have a safe space where you can actually be nice and kind and considerate is good to have. So
Yeah.
folks, check them out. Guys, thank you so much for joining this episode
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
podcast. And I am so excited to see this and to journey with you all. And folks, thank you so much for listening. In the spirit of this game, Remember to be kind and compassionate to one another, but also remember to slow down and take time to enjoy this wonderful hobby. And as always, folks, keep gaming.